Your crossbar installation needs to be between 15 to 25 inches from the bottom of the truck bed. The bottom of your truck bed is considered whatever point that your rack is resting on. So if your rack is resting on the ribs of your truck bed, then that would be where you'll want to measure from. Measure up to the center of your crossbar, and it should be no lower than 15 inches. It can be as high as 20 inches to 25 inches. The first thing you want to do is locate where you want to put your bracket along the bed of your truck. For demonstration purposes, this bracket's a little bit more towards the center of my truck bed, just so you can see everything that I'm going to do. But typically you'd want to mount these further out to the sides of your truck bed. Allow your crossbar to extend between 1.5 to 5 inches past the bracket. The further out the brackets are, the nicer it looks in your truck bed. So you just have to determine the best location for your truck bed. So once you've established the location that you're going to put the bracket, then you just take these two bolts and you want to set those so that the bracket sits kind of flat to the top of the truck bed, and also vertically it should be parallel to the vertical of your truck bed. Basically 90 degrees to the bottom of your truck bed would be ideal. And so we're going to go ahead and turn this in until the contact pad touches the truck bed and supports that angle that we're trying to get. Once we've got that angle supported, we'll go down to the bottom bolt. The bottom bolt needs to come in until it touches the wall of the truck bed. And also both of them should be touching the wall of the truck bed and supporting that angle. Now I have the bracket perpendicular to the bed of the truck. Both of the contact pads have pulled the bracket all the way out so that I can't push it in any further and I can't pull it out. It's just at that snug point. This is the perfect situation and setup that you want to have. Once you have it set up like this, you will then go in and tighten down these two bolts with wrenches so that it's completely locked in. Two 9/16 inch wrenches and tighten down these bolts. Real nice and tight. Now you can take your bracket off and we'll mount it to the crossbar. We'll now go ahead and put the U-bolts into the bracket. They will go into these 4 holes right here. Put the U-bolt in, put one washer on either side, and hand thread on the nuts until about 1/4 inch of the threads come out the other side. And we'll repeat that on the other side. So it should look like that. Okay, now we're going to put the bracket onto the crossbar, and we want to set it into the position that we already figured out, where we wanted our distance from the end of the crossbar to the bracket so that it sits in the truck in the right place where we set it up for. In this case, I set it up for about 3 inches. You can snug up the bolts finger tight. If they're stuck a little bit on some of the paint on the threads, you can use a 1/2 inch wrench to snug them up a little bit. But basically just get a nice fit where it still has a little movement to it. With one end loose, go ahead and tighten one end all the way so that your bracket is already fully locked and secure on one end of the crossbar. The other end that's slightly loose will allow it to settle in and find perfect alignment. Make sure that when you're tightening these bolts down, that you're tightening them down nice and even. You don't want one end sticking out further than the other, which is easy to do if you just keep tightening this side down and then you don't tighten this side down quite as much. It'll feel tight, but one of them will be sticking out too far, which causes it to look a little bit uneven on the front side as well. So just make sure you're going back and forth. When I tighten it down, I usually tighten it down a bit, and then I'll go to the next screw, and then the next one, and the next one, and kind of alternate all around and make sure they all feel tight, because sometimes the more you tighten this side, that side will get looser. So then you'll have to go back and tighten that one a little bit. So just kind of check them all multiple times until they all feel evenly tight. So here we have this side is locked in, while the other side of the bar is still a little bit loose, and that'll allow me to perfectly align it onto the truck bed. Okay, now you're ready to put the crossbar onto the truck. And this end should rotate right into position. Make sure everything's sitting flat against the truck bed. Maybe push down the bar a little bit, just make sure everything is square. And then you can go in and tighten up these nuts with your 1/2-inch wrench. And you might have to take it back off to get to the ones on the other side. So if you tighten the inside, the ones you can easily access, get those so that everything is held tight. Then you go ahead and take it off and tighten the other side. Working with your turnbuckle, you want to make sure that you have plenty of threads from your turnbuckle into the main part of the body of the turnbuckle. So these ends will unthread all the way. You definitely don't want to just be barely in the threads. You want to make sure that it's inserted at least 10 full rotations into the thread. Your bracket has 2 mounting hole positions. Those 2 mounting hole positions are to allow you to reach your hooks that are in your truck bed. So if you're trying to mount it to the top position and it doesn't quite reach the hook in your truck bed, then you can use the lower position to give you a little bit more reach. After you mount up the turnbuckle to your bracket and it reaches to the hook in your truck bed, you want to make sure that it is going at a downward angle. It's important because this hook is basically pulling the bracket down and tight against your truck bed. So if it's not in a downward position, it's not going to secure it in properly. So you wouldn't want it to be mounted parallel to the crossbar. It should always be mounted downward. Ideal angle would be 45 degrees or more. You can adjust the bracket to the left or right as it's mounted on the crossbar here. You can bring it up to 1.5 inches from the end of the crossbar. You don't really want to go any further than that, but leave yourself about 1.5 inches of space at the end of the crossbar. That would allow you to bring your bracket closer, which would give you a closer reach from the bracket to the hook that's in your truck bed. Further away you pull it, the more distance it's going to create between your truck bed hook and the bracket. So it's actually a way to help perfect the mounting of the system into your truck and get the right distance between these 2 points. Once you have your turnbuckle into position, you go ahead and tighten it down by hand until it's about as tight as you can get it and it's slipping through your fingers. And then you'll want to do that on both sides, make sure it's evenly tight, and then go in there with your wrench. I'm using a 9/16 inch wrench to tighten it down just a little bit more. Maybe 2/4 turns, depends on how tight you can get it with your hands. Some people have stronger hands than others, but in general, you don't want to over tension this. You don't want to start pulling the bracket out of the side of your truck or anything. So you'll know by how solid it feels when it's locked into the truck. It shouldn't move at all. And everything should be rattle free and very, very tense under pressure. Once you have everything tight, you'll go ahead and lock down the security nut here, and we'll lock that into position to the turnbuckle. Using a 1/2 inch wrench on the security nut, or a 9/16 inch wrench on the turnbuckle, go ahead and tighten that down nice and tight. And then you're pretty locked into place at that point. Keep an eye on your turnbuckle from time to time. Just check it, make sure nothing's loosened up in your system, make sure everything's always nice and tight. You'll always want to kind of keep an eye on your system and just make sure that everything is staying snug and secure and nothing's settled in. After your setup is in, go ahead and make sure and check it after your first use. Just make sure that everything stays secure. Give that crossbar a shake. Grab it from the outside of your truck. Go back and forth, give it a shake, up and down, make sure nothing's moving. If you start to detect any movement, you might have some settling that has happened. Go through and tighten up the components, make sure everything is back to the way it was when you first installed it. Other than that, everything should stay secure in your truck. Now that your crossbar is installed, we will go ahead and install the bike rack units to the crossbar. The procedures are the same whether you're using the hanger crossbar or the quick kit style crossbar. Installing the rack onto the crossbar is very quick and simple. Just put your plastic bushings with the lip or flange facing towards the outside, one on the left side and one on the right side of each rack that you're installing. Slide your rack over the top of the bushings. Line everything up, and then put your quick clamps, your quick release clamps go right into each side. Fasten the other side of your quick release clamp with the appropriate nut and press it down, and you're all set and ready to go. Okay, installing a bike. First time you put a bike into the rack, you just need to get it set up to fit that tire size. Once you have it set up, it'll take that bike with, just check it every once in a while, make sure nothing has loosened up, but it should fit every time with that same tire. As long as you keep pressure in it, in the tire, it should fit the same each time. So you have a major adjustment right here, which is your lower slider, and you heard it click in. You want to click that into the position that you choose that best fits your wheel size. This particular wheel size is a 29-inch wheel, so probably want to put it in second to the last position. You might also choose the last position, just depends on the size of the tire that you have. So once you select that position, go ahead and put the wheel into the rack. You want the front of the tire to be as close as you can. You'd like to have your front tire within a ½ inch to just about touching the front head unit here. You don't want it pressing tight up against the head unit because the tire needs to settle into the lower wheel chock. It needs to be pressing against the lower wheel, and then also the upper arm will come down and press against the tire. To get good firm pressure, you want to adjust this adjustment knob right here. So that adjustment knob is going to give you the ability to have good firm pressure on the tire. If you put your wheel in and it's too tight, you can loosen the knob, and that'll give it a little bit less pressure so that you can clamp the arm down. If there's not enough pressure, obviously turn the opposite way to tighten it down, and then you get some good firm pressure. Ideally, you want this arm to be about in line with the lower arms down here, or the slide rails. When that's all parallel and you're starting to feel a little tension, that's about the right spot. And then you can snap it in. But you'll have to do a little experimenting. It depends on your bike, your tire size, and you kind of get a feel for the pressure. Be careful that you don't get too much pressure. You don't want to damage your rim by over clamping. Let's say you have more of a road bike style with a smaller tire. You don't want to over press that and damage your rim. So just pay attention to it. It's common sense, basically. You may also choose to put your bike in backwards, and the same procedure. Just put it in, get it all set up with the right proper tension, clamp it in, and you're good to go. The locks for your rack have a flat side and a rounded side. The flat side installs onto the locking pin. To lock your rack, you want to put the locking pin through the center hole in the rack unit, and the flat side of the lock goes all the way on the bottom. To install the tie down, choose one of the anchor points on the back of your truck. You can either choose a higher anchor point or a lower anchor point. Install one end of the tie down into the anchor point. Run the strap through each wheel. Install the other end of the tie down onto the other anchor point. Firmly tighten the strap.